Welcome to the Rebuild Procurement Podcast, the number one procurement podcast in the world, where we dive deep into topics to keep procurement people up to date and ahead of their peers. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Click them all. On today's episode, for the OGs, the long-standing procurement and sourcing folks, the real deal folks out there, we're going to talk about reverse auctions. So I think a lot of folks that have done them, you may have a love relationship with them. You may have a hate relationship with them. We're going to go in through some stories and also best practices, when you should be using them, maybe when you shouldn't, to get the maximum value for your company and yourself. I'm Tom Finn, bringing 15 years on the client side, procurement, finance, and category management experience in large and small cap orgs.
And I'm Alan Veek, a procurement geek on the sell side of our street, and I've assembled a team of superhuman procurement professionals who are all doing managed services at a company that we call Summit.
All right, Alan. So like I said, we're talking about reverse auctions today. You and I have a bit of a different
I have a love relationship.
Yeah, and
you have
I
a hate
have
relationship, Tom?
I have indifferent, sometimes dislike relationship with reverse auctions. I think, Alan, when we first started this, I think I said, Alan, if there's one thing, maybe it was like one of three things we can never talk about, and it's reverse auctions. You're like, Tom, that's like top of my list. It's like ready to talk
my favorite
about
thing in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to go into a little back and forth. This is something that Alan and I differ on. I mean, when you talk through it, we probably come a little bit closer, but on the stance is something we tend to take opposing sides.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to start today's podcast by making a big announcement. Big news, earth-shattering news. Here's earth-shattering news. I've decided within the last 2 weeks, thinking about this very topic, that at Summit Procurement, every client that we work with will get at least one free reverse auction. We will do one reverse auction for them. I was listening to this great podcast from the Founders Fund on Elon Musk, and it said he believed in doing things for show. Like, you needed to have something to show. And you know, procurement kind of sucks like that. We don't have anything to show. Oh, here's a contract. No, nobody wants to.
I don't care about risk. Just make sure it doesn't happen.
Here's an RFP. No, nobody wants to look at that. The Smithsonian Museum in DC is never going to ask, can you please send us the best RFP you've ever written? They all suck. So what?
Not sure they're going to ask for reverse auctions either, but
no, you're so wrong. What shows in the world of procurement is a beautiful screen, a big 85-inch screen showing your suppliers bidding for your business and the price just going bing, 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 all the way down. So you see, oh, look, Tom, look, there's 8% savings. Oh, wait, no, there's 9%. Oh, 12% savings. How low can they go? It's the best thing in the whole world. We were watching, my wife and I were watching this great
watching a reverse auction the other night.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same idea. We were watching this great show on TV last night called The Lost Leonardo. It was about this supposedly last Leonardo da Vinci that was found in New Orleans, and then they bought it in New York. And
and they're not sure if it is, right? I've seen that documentary.
They're not sure. I mean,
but now it's sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. So,
but what scene do you remember from that movie? You remember the scene where they're at the Christie's auction house and that price is going up and up and up, and everybody's gasping. So I want to offer to every one of my clients one free reverse auction. The only conditions I put on it are, it's got to be the right category, it's got to be the right event, but we have to get
Are you saying it's not for every category and every event?
It's not for every category, for sure. But I would say my only condition is going to be, we need to have C-level people in a conference room at headquarters that are watching this reverse auction unfold, because it's the most exciting thing. And it actually brings some life. It brings some sexiness. It brings some attractiveness to what tends to be our very humdrum world of procurement.
Yeah. So what makes actually a good reverse auction? Because I think the experiences I have had have been on the opposite side, right? I think it is kind of it is something where there's a few decent categories within companies that it's great in, could drive savings, but then there's like a bunch that aren't even long tail, just a bunch that are not good for reverse auctions.
Yeah. I would actually, I'm going to challenge you and say,
Please do.
yes, there are some categories that are not good. However, that's a very small subset of the world of procurement, because
I think
truly,
it depends on the company.
it does. What you need is you need to have spend that is attractive to a large enough competitive supply base. And I'll go ahead and throw this out there right now. We did PhD level research when I was at Free Markets, because that's all we did. We ran dozens of reverse auctions a day for all of our clients. We did PhD level research that said, what's the magic number of suppliers to drive optimal competitiveness, Tom? It is 7. 7 suppliers. So you need to have a competitive field that's probably at least a couple dozen suppliers, because you're going to have some suppliers that say, that doesn't fit me. There are going to be some suppliers that you as a buyer look at and you say, I don't want to do business with that supplier because of A, B, and C. So you need to have 7 highly qualified suppliers bidding on an attractive piece of business. That means it needs to be big enough, it needs to be interesting enough, it needs to be good enough. And you as a buyer need to be like OC freaking D, OCD about defining exactly what it is you want. There can't be squishiness there, or there can't be too much squishiness there. So the bidders have to know exactly what they're bidding on.
Yeah. And maybe it's something, so many companies don't have the time for that, is probably one thing. So maybe in a perfectly set up, which maybe is a perfect pitch for you, Alan.
No,
But,
you're about to fall in my trap. Keep
no,
walking.
there's still no trap. There's still no trap. Yeah, the no trap. But I would just say a standard company, it does take a lot of time to set it up right. Because I think it's similar to like a lump sum bid, right? Where it's something where if it's no flexibility on the backside, because you're the expectation is you have something laid out, it's perfect. Spec can't deviate within a range, an acceptable range, and you have to be accepting on your side, and they have to be accepting on their side. And with that, you're not able to shift it afterwards. So you press go on the bidder, presses go on their price. If it's per unit, per whatever, per hole, whatever it is that they're bidding on, they can't change it afterwards because you're making a decision in that regard. Have I fallen into your trap yet, Alan?
You've fallen perfectly into my trap. What I would say
Bring it
is
on.
the most exciting auctions that I ever ran, there's like dozens come to mind, were ones where you could define it so radically tightly that you could say to the bidding field, whoever has the lowest price wins. Now, I would tell you that was less than 1% of the time we ever had those rules in an auction. 99.5% of the time, the rules were the lowest bidder does not necessarily win. There's several other factors that come into play that we, the buyer, reserve the right to evaluate after the pricing portion has been determined to make a final award. So that's the key piece. Is it's never, you almost never set up a reverse auction where lowest bidder wins. And the trap that I was hoping you would fall into, and you kind of did, is
I climb good. I'm a good climber, Alan.
Good. I'll throw you a rope. After you determine this one element that's important, but it's not everything, once you determine this one element, price, you still have supplier selection to do. You still have contracts to do. You have to write the contract with whomever you choose. And you then have to manage that supplier across the course of the relationship. So that work, that upfront work that you were talking about that no organization has time to do, either you do it today and you get a better outcome by doing it today, or you push it off and you say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. But guess what? You always have to pay that piper. You always, if you want to have a good relationship with the supplier, you have to eventually tell them what the hell you want, and you have to tell it tightly enough. So why not do it up front when it can actually influence who you choose and what you pay for the goods and services you're buying?
Yeah, for sure. I do agree with that. There's probably two pieces that I'm beating around the bush on. One is just that preparation piece, right? Just the ability to put forth the effort within a company. Because a lot of companies don't go and, go to outside third parties to do it. But I think that they might get or have gotten historically pressured to do the reverse auctions. And they're not teed up, one, with the time, maybe two, with the knowledge of how to go through it, right? So I think there's that side of, sure, like C-suite people could bring in outside parties to run them for them. But I think that was kind of a big consulting play at one point, and a big pitch. The other side is kind of that, I mean, it's not as used anymore, but the total cost of ownership side of things. There is a factor of, and I mean, we're speaking like broad brush right now of like, you could buy anything with it, through it, but there are a lot of like relationship aspects that come into play that I think folks need to be careful about. It's totally true that if you grind a supplier down, there's going to be one of two things that happen. Either they're going to make up money somewhere else, happens in the field. People sign off on things if you're manufacturing companies. Right. That's one. The other is you can put them out of business, which I've seen happen. I've seen that happen.
The winner's curse.
Yep. Yeah, it is the winner's curse. And a lot of many companies are in the game of just supporting their clients, especially if they're like a relationship-based type company that kind of just like grew with folks, and they're not necessarily margin-minded, where the company itself may be. So I have seen that happen. It wasn't a reverse auction, but it was the company I worked for. The person was getting fancy with it, and they were a huge percentage of the business of that supplier, and they went out of business. And I actually saw it happen twice.
Yeah. So this is something that a good buyer will take into account when they are making an ultimate decision coming out of an auction. They'll look at a number and say, can the supplier support this? And they will actually, in the diligence that you must do before you award to a supplier, you say, now you need to justify this. Talk about your material costs, talk about your labor costs, where are you going to manufacture this, how are you going to make this? Are your margins significant enough that you can actually stay in business? I completely agree. We ran auctions where we saw upwards of 80 or 90% savings. Like hair on fire. You're like, what in the hell just happened here?
Yeah, how much is this company subsidized by their government?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's just so. However, that's going back to this number of 7 suppliers. And I love to think of this as PhD level research. I don't know that anybody wrote a PhD on this, but they should, because this notion of 7 suppliers, I was always amazed in the hundreds of reverse auctions that I ran, and many of them, I started out as just a lowly market maker, and I was the person who was out finding the suppliers, running the RFIs, building the RFPs, and then running the actual reverse auction itself. So I was up close and personal. I was talking to these suppliers on almost a daily basis to get them ready, because that's a part of it. It's like it's like giving Rocky the boxer his, massaging his muscles and saying, "You're gonna get in there and you're gonna punch him in the face.
You got a kid."
Yeah, you're gonna exactly. You got this, Rock. You got this.
Yeah, you got it.
And it always amazed me. I would go in saying, I think supplier A is going to win because this, this, and this. And all of a sudden, boom, off to the races, the supplier you never thought stood a chance, boom, would just clear the field, completely clear the field. And so I think that's the beauty. That's why this number 7 is such an interesting number. You never know which supplier is going to be the one that drives the field. And you have to have enough of them that you don't know about to allow for that to happen, because it's when that happens that the magic really happens. Otherwise, I think most buyers really have a hard time getting at margin. How in the world do you chip away at somebody's margin if they know they've already won the business? If they've been in that relationship with your company for 20, 30 years, and like you said, the relationships run deep, the CEOs talk together, how do you get at margin? How do you ask them to reduce their margin? You don't. You ask and they say no, or they try and give you something else. The only way you do it is through competitive pressure. I've seen this not just in my life as a procurement professional. I've seen it in my whole life, Tom. People don't change unless you competitively change them, unless they know, okay, I've exhausted every other excuse. I have no excuse now. I've got to change or I'm out. And that's what this reverse auction tends to put a spotlight on.
Yeah, it does take the personal out of it in a way too. So there are sort of the factors you need to align up front, which is that executive ownership. And because I think, to your point, Alan, of your buy today and you get this free kind of thing, there is value in having executives understand that because there's maybe been a relationship for a long time. Could be the person in the room's relationship or just somebody else. You've kind of just got that 3% COLA, 5% increase every year. Maybe they held off for a year, kind of.
That's right.
And then they're like, holy moly, what? You kidding me? Like,
Well,
this other company's 25% less.
how
I
could I
think that's the
justify
kind of
this?
drama
Yeah.
that you're talking about.
For sure, it's the drama I'm talking about, and more importantly, I don't want to throw cold water on anything that you've said so far. Relationships are hugely important. I'm a relationship guy. I'm a relationship sales guy. The relationships I have with my clients are meaningful because I will bend over backwards. I'll crawl over broken glass for them, and I think they know that, and I think that's a part of the reason why they're loyal to me. What a reverse auction does, if that relationship exists at a higher level outside of procurement, is it points out to the relationship owner, whether that's the stakeholder inside the business or whether it's the CEO. It says to them, here's how much this relationship costs, and makes them say, is that worth it? Am I paying an appropriate amount for that relationship? And I would never want to discount what a relationship is worth. I think it's worth a ton, but you should at least know what you're paying for it.
Yeah. No, and I think there's just different levels for large areas of spend that can be a little less relationship driven, generally speaking. Like I saw this I worked for call it a widget manufacturer, and they were like reverse auctioning everything. And I remember they didn't select just the lowest cost. It was like,
Good.
these guys are coming out of from nowhere, and this is just absurd. But you watch the little little marker go down, right? And it was fun to see.
It's pretty amazing. Yep.
Yeah. But I just think that there are certain, and in some cases companies need to restructure how they allocate resourcing to you. You just have to understand what it is you're going to get, because there will always be gives. If someone is reducing their cost, if the incumbent reduced their cost by 30%, something will change. I'm certain of that. Something's going to change on their end. I've negotiated folks down, and then you find out on the back end, well, the team changed and that person wasn't going to be held on to. And that was kind of the key person that the main reason we were paying the money for it. So in a way, maybe you were happy to pay that additional percentage for that person or those people, that team. So there's gives and takes. And this is just this is a back and forth with how much something is worth in general. So it's just, for me, when it comes to reverse auctions, yes, you could drive it down significant percentage. And if you need to, that's what you should do. That's kind of what you need to do. But in other cases, the service aspect, or not necessarily the relationship aspect, but the service aspect might be more important. And yeah, maybe you can find alternate suppliers. I think that's something that a lot of folks don't do enough of anyway, is finding other options. Because reverse auction or not, having someone, yes, the reverse auction puts them on the field, and they kind of see each other, and they get competitive and might get heated and make certain emotional decisions that might not be as business friendly for them, which could be worked out on the back end too. But I think that there's just there's just different ways to go about negotiation, and in some ways maybe these reverse auctions are kind of like the Trump's playbook of putting them on the field, right? Just sort of all these are out in the open. Everyone gets to see what's happening, and then see where the pressure lands. And some people love that. Some people prefer backdoor conversations and feel it could be near equally as competitive without maybe all of the drama. But yeah, that's just kind of my opposite take, Alan.
Yeah, no, I love the counterpoint here that we do, Tom. It's awesome.
Yeah. Nevertheless, just to maybe put a cherry on the top that kind of lands, I think, in the middle, Alan, it's that you still need competition. And how you get there,
always
different ways. Like reverse auction probably will drive down more dollar savings up front. I don't actually disagree with that. I think it probably will happen in the moment. Long term, I'd be curious to see how it all plays out. But something that is important is introducing competition. And if that's what the role is within procurement, is to make sure that things stay competitive. It's not that your status quo, your cost shouldn't increase 5% per year across the board. It's not what should happen. You're not doing your job. And adding competition, whether reverse auctions or however it is definitely part of the role of sourcing folks.
Yeah, and don't forget the fact that it's not a bad supplier that sees their costs increase and they pass those cost increase along to their clients. However, they need to understand that there's pressure on them to reduce costs, not to just raise costs. And they're not going to perceive that pressure until you put it on them. Then all of a sudden they say, well, yeah, I don't have a procurement department because I've never thought it was important to do, but I guess I need to invest in this piece of good hygiene. Otherwise, I'm going to lose business. I'm going to go out of business. I'm going to lose margin. So it kind of enforces the right behavior all the way up and down the supply chain. That's what I always appreciated about it. So yeah, there are lots of other little tributaries, a little side alleys we could go down here, Tom, to push the point. But I think that's a good introduction to reverse auctions, and maybe we'll do
our
like
opinions.
a reverse auction series, right?
Yeah, I probably do need something because there are good ways, Alan, to structure them and to do a good job.
Agreed.
Better than others.
I always use this analogy when I was building them. I said, and I had these pictures in a PowerPoint slide. I showed the cockpit of a Cessna, small little private airplane, and it has, basically the 6-pack of dials that everybody watches to fly their plane. And then I showed the cockpit of a 747, and it is nothing but instrumentation and 1,000 dials. And I said, this is the difference between a standard RFP and a reverse auction. A reverse auction is the 747. It has so many different ways you can tune it and fine tune it and course control it. It's got autopilot. It's got so many things in here that you have to think about getting right, that if you're just a standard Joe private pilot who's used to seeing the Cessna, when you sit in the cockpit of the 747, your mind is going to be blown. And you've got to be trained and you have to practice in order to do a reverse auction well. There's so many things that you have to get right. So I think that's maybe we'll pick up in a future episode.
Yeah.
Some of these.
You ever see the manual on those things, Alan? Those 747s?
No.
Yeah, they're enormous. We had one of our friends. He was training for it, and we were like on vacation together, and he like stuck himself in a corner. He had to study X hours a day trying to get up to speed on those things. So it probably is the right analogy too.
Yeah, it's so take your standard procurement professional who's not used to that, and to tell you the truth, most procurement professionals aren't even used to being in a Cessna cockpit. They just
super risk avert.
Paper. They're just pushing. Most procurement professionals are just buying the stuff that their stakeholder tells them to buy from the supplier that they've been asked to buy it from. They're not rocking the boat and saying, "Hey, should we even just do a competitive RFP for this? Should we do an RFI where I go out and find a few new sources of supply for you?" So I would argue that most procurement professionals aren't even in the Cessna cockpit, let alone able to contemplate what the 747 cockpit can do for you.
Yeah, I think it's a fair analogy.
Okay, good. Well, on behalf of your humble hosts here at the Rebuild Procurement Podcast, I am Alan Veek, the OG in procurement, and this is Tommy Finn, who puts the fin in finance, and we're hoping that you will have a powerful and productive week in procurement. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Show me, and you won't hear the word rebuild.